this is solving two-step inequalities. Again, remember it's just like solving an equation, except we have inequality signs. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. The other thing to remember is you're still doing opposite operations. So if we look at the first example, I have 2x plus 6 is less than or equal to 18. I want to isolate my 2x. Therefore, I have to get rid of the 6 first. So when I subtract 6 from both sides, I end up with 2x is less than or equal to 12. Now I need to isolate the x by itself. So if I have a coefficient in a variable, that means to multiply. The opposite would then be to divide both sides by a positive 2. So when you simplify it, you get x is less than or equal to 6. For my second example, I have negative 3x minus 6 is greater than 21. If I want to isolate this negative 3x, I first have to get rid of the 6 by adding it to both sides. So when I add 6 to both pieces, I end up with negative 3x is greater than 27. Remember, if you are dividing or multiplying both sides by a negative, you have to remember to flip your sign. Otherwise, your graph will be incorrect. So when I divide both sides by a negative 3, I end up with x. I flip my inequality sign, so now it's a less than and a negative 9. And for example 3, I threw in a fraction because they do exist. So again, if I want to isolate this term, I have to get rid of the 6, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides, which gives me 3/4 x greater than or equal to 10. Remember, if you have a fraction that's attached to a variable, we multiply by its reciprocal, because when we multiply by the reciprocal, we end up with 12 over 12, which is equal to 1, and that's what we want. So multiply by 3/4 here, multiply by 3/4 on the right side. Remember, when you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, we can rewrite it over 1 before we do our multiplying. If you forgot how to multiply fractions, remember that it's numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, and then you simplify. So this whole piece is going to give me a 1x greater than or equal to 10 times 4 gives me 40, 3 times 1 gives me 3. Write this as a mixed number by doing your long division if necessary. And you end up with 13 1/3. Do not write it as a decimal because you do not have a decimal in your problem. And the last piece is just a little reminder for when you have to graph these. Remember that if it's less than or greater than, you have an open circle. If it's the or equal to inequalities, then you have a closed circle. And if your inequality is written, as all of my answers are, with the variable first, the inequality sign, and then your solution, the direction of the inequality sign is going to tell you the direction of your arrow on your number line.